Chapter 19 Broken Walls. It is almost like a rule, like us. Once the hero or heroes are done training, the mentor dies. Especially if the writer is bon le moindre merveilleux, and the mentor also happens to be the hero's parent, especially if she is their mother. Knocks of Marare. Nocza. I borrowed a horse, then rode to the border villages. I reasoned that because they were so close to Draco, no one would think I would be stupid enough to stop there. I traveled and entered towns at night. I felt like a scared child again, like everyone was watching me and ready to get me in trouble. My whole life I'd watched others die for me. Now those shields were gone. There was no one to protect me anymore. I reached a town called Inna, under 2 crescent moons, but while trying to enter I bumped into the guards outside the town walls. Literally. I looked up and my heart sank as I saw their unfriendly expressions, and that one appeared to be a veteran of the army, meaning that he was either incredibly nationalist or tired and disheartened. Given that he was in the military, I guessed it was the former. "Who are you?" the veteran asked. "I am Ashela of Ashkdi Mariotsul Ligio Luigi," I said. "My goodness, what were you thinking?" He smiled a bit. "Sounds like a very interesting town." I smiled. "Yes, the legend has it that the founder wrote down random letters until he was satisfied with the name." "So why are you here?" "Yes," I searched for an explanation. "What was the one I had used with the other guards?" "Vix is a nice country. I wish to see it." He raised an eyebrow. "We're by the former border. There's nothing to see here." "My journey has only recently started," he grunted. "All right, go in." I started to walk in, but stopped when he spoke again. "One question, though." My heart skipped a beat when I heard this tone. "If you are coming here from Draco, where are you using the west entrance?" "Crikey." Footnote. It's Lepusian for country. It's also a child or parent-friendly replacement for curse words. "Now, what reason would a Lepusian girl have for lying about why she was entering a small border town?" "It is a very easy place to disappear, is it not, Nobiotcha?" When he said my name, I picked up my skirts and sprinted into town, my heart pounding, running around blindly. Much like in Gresola, someone pulled me aside, but this time I was pulled into a small wooden house, and it was by a Ethicica who looked back at me. Her eyes were grey, several shades darker than her fur, and her face was earnest. Are you all right, Faskel?" she asked. I shook my head, once again reminded of that day in Gresola. "Do not do this with me. Do not endanger yourself," I thought. There was a knock at the door. "Get out of sight," the girl said. Then she looked behind her. "I'll answer it." I ran into another room where a man and a woman, her parents, I guess, were sitting at the table and talking. They looked at me in surprise. "Why are you here, Faskel?" the man asked. His tone was polite, so with an edge I guessed was annoyance. I waited until I had caught my breath, and the girl had finished talking to answer. "I'm sorry for running in like this. I was running from the soldiers when your daughter pulled me inside." They nodded. "Ah, so what did you do?" the man asked. My eyes stung. "My cousin." My voice cracked. It was barely louder than a whisper. They looked at each other. The woman put a hand on mine. "It's all right. You don't need to tell us if you don't want to." "You're the girl from the poster, right?" the girl asked. I nodded, blinking away my tears. "Do you know what they say?" the woman asked her. The girl frowned. "Her name's Nobiotcha, and she's from Gresola. She's wanted for escaping from prison and something I don't know." The woman turned back to me. "Is that true?" I nodded. "Yes." And then I was on the verge of tears again, thinking of Kazelia and Sonelia and why Luis Kezia had died. And It is Nocza. Banosamia Nocza. The footnote, Banosamia is Lepusian for miss. Practically everyone who did not refer to me formally called me Nocza, which was mostly limited to random older people who, besides Luscasia, was the closest things I had to parents. Cigar grinned. Someone who likes my nicknaming! Finally! The woman put her hand on my shoulder. You can stay here as long as you need. My name's Fastelina. This is my husband, Hector Evater, and my daughter Zelin. Do you need food? Tea? I nodded. Tea would be fine. Fastelina brought out a pot. Does anyone else want some? Hector Evater and Elin nodded. Fastelina got 4 mugs and tea leaves and filled the kettle with water. She walked to the other room and put it over the fire. Well, I think the best way to do this is to have you stay in the basement, said Faustina. All right, thank you. I felt a stab as guilt as I walked into the basement. Why must they risk their lives like this? So, we were almost ready to leave. Luzelius was playing around with snowflakes and talking to Pafokit, and Sina and I were talking about the ruins of the nest. Juanca hadn't come back yet. Tolopalo seemed happy that we were finally leaving, though annoyed at Juanca's absence. What's that girl doing? He wondered. I don't know, I said. Hello there. Wait, no, that doesn't sound right, said a new voice with a Sylish accent. I looked over, and sure enough, a fairy was in the hallway. I opened Snowfall. Anyway, pretend you haven't seen me. She stepped out of sight again. From what I had seen, the fairy was about half a foot taller than Sina or Luciolus, and looked old enough to have been around during the Iron War. With red gold hair falling to her waist and covering one eye. Her skin was dark brown, which Sina once mentioned was common in southern Syl, and her leaf green eyes stared you down as if daring you to challenge her. She stood confidently, casually carrying a large kitchen knife, and wore a very full green and cold dress. So she's either a very competent fighter or very inexperienced. That narrows it down, I thought. Hello, random and not so random children. I'm Auriel of Charles, la suite Sorelli. You may have heard of me if you have studied the Iron War. The first option, Svotok. Now anyway, do you know how much money the Emperor offers in return for deserters and anyone harboring them? A lot? Luckily for you, Private, he likes to kill them himself. Fuck, stiffened. Dolapalo brought his palm to his face. Headshot. Lita, swordmot. Buonasimoto, as Una said. Agora, non motoreika. Footnote, the translation of that conversation is, and there it is. Well, I'm dead. You're not dead. Yet. And you won't die here. He sighed. I wonder what they are saying. I thought. Auriel pulled out a knife and flew at us. I slipped into the shadows as everyone scattered. She smiled. I quickly moved forward to attack, but by simply flicking her hand, she stopped me with a magical field. Svotok, I thought. She laughed. Silly boy, you've barely scratched the surface of what shadow magic can do. She took out a wand and flicked it up. Now, having the soul ripped from your body ain't very fun, to say the least. It ain't very painful, it just feels like being pulled through some kind of sick liquid. But it's incredibly disturbing to see your body and be a soul without a body. You feel both dead and alive. Your body breathes but don't sink, and your soul can sink but can't smell, taste, or touch nothing. Soul magic is wrong. It's an insult to the natural order of things. It's almost like killing someone. Luzelu screamed. Sina looked interested, took notes, seemed to realize what happened, and then stared, looking like she was going to be sick. I felt the same. I wondered what that would look like. Tolapalo was trying very hard to look like he didn't care. Pavokit looked very confused and concerned. He asked Sina something, and she responded, and he looked horrified. Auriel smiled and snapped her fingers. A ball of fire appeared above her and flew towards my friends. Don't make me concern. Pavoki jumped in front of Luca and Ethicica to protect him. It exploded on impact, sending him flying into the wall, bringing Luca and Ethicica with them. The cries of pain muffled by his, as well as Tolopalo's, who hadn't been able to get out of range. I didn't blame him, though, as the explosion filled the whole basement. I instinctively ducked and shielded my eyes. I wondered if souls could go blind from bright lights. Luckily, Tolopalo was not at the center of the explosion. Unluckily, Pavoki twice. I ran forward to help them, or the soul version of that at least, sighed as I remembered my lack of a physical form, and then kept running because I wanted to make sure everyone was all right. Luca was checking everyone for injuries. Both she and her sister were bruised and their skirts were partially burned. In addition to that, it appeared that Luca's nose and Ethicica's arm were broken. I'm sorry, Pavoki said. Later. Ethicica took her stuff. Now, I think this is enough. I'm getting bored, but asking Liam for help, what is even more boring? Auriel looked down at my body. Then she prepared another fireball. Wonderful. Before she could sense the attack, so she was knocked out of the air by an icicle. We looked to where it had come from. Tolopalo was standing by the wall, his wand raised and his face burned but determined. Damn, Auriel, he's gonna try to sacrifice himself now. Ethicica said, Baketsoi, leave! He put on my magical shields that my friends ran behind. Especially you, Pavokitito. What did that mean? Pavokit asked. Is a Mitonese diminutive of your name? Said Ethicica. Alright, Baketsoi. I feel like I should give some advice before this shield fails, he said. Asenetta! She interrupted, glaring at him. Call me that again and Auriel won't be the one who kills you, he said. Tell Sister Juanita when you see her again. He said something in Arachnes and she nodded. And for you, remember that while the mind is a powerful tool, do not underestimate the sword. Luzetta Luz, you've made it clear that you are a healer, so you better heal no matter how annoyed your team makes you. Fokitito, you aren't a Sinisian soldier anymore, and Solitor, if you're listening, being invisible can be very useful. You make a good spy, assuming you've survived this. So it doesn't mean you can't start now, though. Also, I thought I could see a tear in his eye. Tell Gina Lisa that I love her. I smiled and tried not to cry. I wondered what soul tears looked like. The shield broke. He drew a sword and took out 2 knives and ran forward. Auriel was smaller than him and less physically powerful, but she was faster and able to use her speed and smaller size to maneuver between his attacks and land her own. He wouldn't win this, but he'd at least be able to buy my friend some time. He saw us standing there instead of running away and glared at us. What? Do you want me to die for nothing? Kotareti todoi! Footnote, that is Mitonese for run, fools. My friends ran, but I didn't. I stayed and watched as Auriel overpowered him. She pinned him down. As she pinned him down, I thought I saw the air shimmering. Well, any last words? Auriel said casually, her knife poised above his chest. He turned as best as he could in the directions my friends had gone, and yelled as loudly as he could, I told you so! And then she brought it down as he shouted, Manna la misa! Mi va coletat! And left us my body. Footnote. Manna la misa mi va coletat means, dang it, she stabbed me. It's a famous quote from a play by Giletto of the theater. The meaning was actually, he stabbed me, but the wording is the same. It wasn't until much later that I realized I could have tried to reclaim my physical form that whole time.